Hey everyone, my name is Neil and welcome back to my garage. In today's video, we're going to be making a very basic workbench. We're basically going to call it my first workbench. We're going to assume that you don't have a lot of tools. We're not going to use a workbench to make it. We're going to cheat a little and use a piece of insulation foam and cut on the floor. But basically, we're going to have the hardware store cut as much for us as possible. And then when we bring it back here, we're going to do the odds and ends. So go ahead and stay tuned. Okay everyone, so I think I forgot to mention it, but just a couple rules before we get started. Number one, we're going to try to build this workbench in 2 to 3 hours because after that it's going to get super hot in here and I'm not trying to be in here. And 2, like I said, we're going to have the lumber store cut most of our lumber. And then 3, we're not going to be using a workbench to make a workbench. That's cheating. We're going to cut on the floor on a piece of insulation foam. And then 4, we need to decide whether we're going to Home Depot or Menards. So I have a coin here and we're going to flip on it. Heads Home Depot, tails Menards, and it's heads. So we're going to Home Depot. All right, let's go. All right, so here you are at Home Depot at the Project Panel Center. We want to pick up a 4x4 piece of plywood and we're going to have them cut this in half for us. We're going to get 3/4 and then we're going to go and pick out our 2x4s. I don't know how much this costs, but we're going to get 4 of them for this project. There you go, $5.96. Okay, so here we're going to have them cut all our lumber for us. And then we're going to take it back home and then cut what we need to size. All right, so this is what our cart looks like after our pieces have been cut. That was simple. We didn't have to do anything. 90% of our cutting is done. Okay, so this is the wood glue that we'd be picking up, type on 2. As you're going to see in the video, I'm not going to use any wood glue because I'm going to take this workbench apart 2 or 3 times to make other ones. And then these are the Casters 4-inch polyurethane ones from Everbuilt. And then here we are picking up number 9 or 2.5-inch screws, or get number 8, and then our number 10 washers for our casters. And then some screws, and we basically have everything that we need. Also some brackets that I didn't film for the underside of the tabletop. All right, now that we're home, we're going to be putting all our pieces on our insulation foam, all the lumber that we already had cut, and then our casters on the left, and our plywood. So we're going to lay it out to see what we need to cut for the apron. And here we're just going to take our 2 longest pieces and we're going to measure and we're going to cut them down. We want a 3-inch overhang on either side, so we're going to cut them down to 42 inches. And then mark them with our speed square. Then we're going to move out the way. And we're going to take our circular saw and we're going to make a little platform so that we can cut our 2x4. We're going to use our speed square and a clamp and just cut slowly. Be very careful. Make sure you don't cut yourself. Okay, we're going to use that piece for later, and then we're going to cut the other piece, so now these 2 are matching. So we're going to put them off to the side, and then we're going to measure, and we're going to trace our outline so it'll be easier visually for us so that we don't have to keep measuring. So we're going to do a 3-inch overhang, so 3 inches on either side from the edge, and we're just using a drywall square. Okay, we're going to put that off to the side now. We're going to put back our lumber. So this is a good visual aid so that we don't have to keep checking, like I said. And then now we're getting ready to cut our shorter pieces for our apron. So we're going to mark it with our speed square again. And then we're going to cut this just like we cut the other 2 pieces. We're going to cut 2 of these. As I mentioned, we're going to be building this whole thing on the floor. So now that we have our 2 pieces, we just got to sweep up. So now we're going to lay out that we've cut all our pieces for the apron down to size. We're just going to shimmy it in place. Okay, make sure everything is touching. And then you would use wood glue for these joints, but like I said, I'm not using wood glue because we need to build 2 or 3 workbenches. Okay, we're going to get our screws and our drill. We're not going to use an impact driver here. We're going to use 1 clamp. So 1 clamp, 1 drill, 1 speed square, 1 circular saw. Right here as we marked it. Now we clamped it down and then we're going to drill. We'll switch to the other side so you can see what it looks like. Okay, just drill slowly. The hole doesn't have to be 100% straight, just semi-straight. This is a workbench after all. Now we're drilling our countersinks, which helps prevent the wood from splitting. And then just put in your 2.5-inch screws. Okay, and we're going to do that for all 4 sides. Rotate it around now and look at it. And then we're going to do the same exact thing to the other side. Make sure you support this side, so we're going to put a piece of plywood under it. And then we're going to take our 2 screws and repeat the process. We're going to do this over and over again. And again, you would be using wood glue for this. Okay, so we're going to do a time lapse just to speed it up. And sorry guys, I got to shoot for TikTok as well as YouTube at the same time. So now we're just going to be putting in the rest of our screws. And then we're going to line it back up on our outline. And we're going to grab our screws, our brackets for the table undermount. And we're just going to hit it in place there. Make sure it's straight. And these are 1-inch brackets, if I remember correctly, because that's what I had. And I didn't want to go back to the store. So we're just going to be using our screwdriver for the bottom and then a drill for the side. Also, just to note, for the tabletop, we're using 5/8 inch screws, and then for the sides, we're using 8 by 1 1/4. Now you can use as few or as many of these brackets as you want for your tabletop. I used 8, but you could definitely use more. Notice here on the side, you don't want it as close to the side of the apron as I had it. I had to actually move them over to the left because I want the 2x4 to go in that corner. So I'll show you what it looks like after I move it. So I had to take out all 4 of these, the ones on the top and bottom corners, and move them slightly inward so we could fit the 2x4 there. Okay, so that's what the brackets look like in this view, but you could see in the next view that we have all the corner brackets moved inward so that we could fit the 2x4s in there. My bad. Okay, so we're going to put in our legs. We're just drilling in the screws for our legs. We put 2 screws on each, and same thing. You could use wood glue here, although we're not going to. And then we're going to speed this up here on the other side. Again, more wood glue and more screws to put on all 4 legs. And you really don't have to check anything because we know our apron is square. Okay, now we're going to support our legs because they're not very strong. So we're going to cut 2 more pieces for that. Same thing, the speed square keeps the circular saw straight, and the clamp allows us to keep our hand out of the way so that it's nowhere near the blade. Please make sure to take your time and don't be in a rush. Okay, now we're going to put these 2 pieces on the bottom where our casters are going to go. And again, since I only have the 1 clamp, I have to get creative and hold it. You hopefully have more than 1 clamp, and I just got these clamps at Harbor Freight for a few dollars. And we're going to move to the other side. We're going to use our leg, and then we're going to mount our other brace. We're just using those small cutoff pieces to make sure it's level. And then we drill in our screws. Again, use wood glue here. And then now we're going to be putting on our 4-inch polyurethane casters. These are expensive, but they are my favorite casters. I've never had flat spots, and I use these on all my workbenches. You could see it on the one in the back left. By putting in your screws into your casters, but you're also putting your washers on your screws to help hold down your casters. So I'll try to zoom in here so you could see it. There's the screw, and below that is the washer. Now we're going to move everything out of the way and get ready to tip this thing over.
This is the moment of truth.
All right, hopefully it works. So we're just going to tip it slowly. It's not heavy. Okay, perfect. It tipped. And then we're just going to give it a little test run here. Move it, make sure it doesn't tip over. All right, if I could do this again, I'd probably make the legs a couple inches further apart and probably be 16 inches from each other. That way it'd be a little bit more stable, but that's up to you to try for next time. This is good for me for right now. So now we're going to cut our bottom shelf here. We're putting it back on the floor and just using our off pieces, and we're going to mark it with our drywall square, and we're going to cut this right down to size. I'm not going to use a 2x4. I'm just going to freehand this and then cut it to length and then put it down, and it fits perfectly. So we're going to put about 6 or 7 screws in here. You can do more if you want, but I just want to show that this works. Put as many as you feel comfortable. And now our table should be stable.
It took 3 hours. 3. Not bad.
And now I'm just spinning it around to make sure that it works. This is how I test all my workbenches. And if it doesn't tip, then we're normally good. And at its lightest, it's going to be the most likely to tip. Once you put tools on there, then it's going to be pretty solid.
That's it.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Alright, that's how you build a workbench on the floor, and as you can see, this thing is somewhat solid, so we're going to go ahead and test it out in the coming weeks to make sure that's okay. First things first, I want to go over the few things that I didn't mention in the beginning before we leave. Number one is you can definitely make this workbench to your size. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, you can make it taller. It's up to you how you want to customize it. The only thing I would recommend is make sure that you use good casters. Number two, so the total material for this came out to be about $160, and that's because the casters were so expensive. They came out to about half that price. So if you want to cut down the cost, you could definitely use some different casters. This is just what the store had on hand, and it's the ones that I actually prefer to use. All right, number three, you could definitely upgrade this thing later if you want. You could add a middle shelf, you could add drawers, it's up to you. That's why I like it, because it has a very basic frame, but it's very customizable. All right, number four, I think a workbench is a very good big project to tackle because it doesn't require precision. You can mess it up and still make a good workbench. You could upgrade it later, you could fix it, you could tweak it. Aesthetically, it's not required to look like anything. It just needs to function. All right, guys, I will say one more thing. This is part of a build series. One of the reasons why you didn't see me use any wood glue in this video is because we're going to be taking this workbench apart and making a whole new one. Rather than go out and buy a bunch of new lumber, we're just going to use what we have here. So go ahead and stay tuned, like and follow, because you don't want to miss out on the series. Also, let me know down in the comments what you thought about this video and what you would like to see on a future build. All right, I'm Neil the Garage Guy, and I'll see you guys on the next one.